This is episode 4 in our series. And I'm Matthias Anderson, one of the developer advocates at Pluralsight, but I have Michael Cassidy with me. Michael, do you want to just give yourself a brief introduction?
Sure. Hey, Matthias. Thank you for having me on the show today. So I'm Michael Cassidy. I'm a DevOps training architect at Pluralsight, and I'm also the founder of Active in Tech, a little business I started to help people in tech improve their health and wellness and fitness. And stress management is a big part of being healthy and well. So many people. I made a post about this. 83% of Americans report being stressed out from their work. 1 million Americans miss work every day due to stress. So it's something that um, is important to try to manage, because stress isn't really going anywhere, but we do need to find ways to reduce it, and manage it.
Absolutely. Now, just to put that in context, you said Americans, and what's the population of the USA right now? I'm in Canada myself, so I don't keep track. Is it like
Um,
400?
I
I
see between 300 and 400 million.
Okay. So
I'm
that's
not
quite a lot of people, but still 1 million, like 1 out of 400 people is currently taking a stress day. Like that,
right.
that's a stat basically? Is that what you're getting
That's
at?
that's the stat I read from the American Institute of Stress. I didn't know there was an
Ouch.
Institute of
Yeah.
Stress, but that's
Hopefully it's not like the causing stress, like sometimes those things are named in kind of funny ways. But yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
All right. So
Yeah,
just to set, oh, sorry. Just to give a little bit of context. First of all, we want to take questions. So if you have questions while we're going through this stream, we want to be interactive. So jump on the LinkedIn's, and also I think we're connected to your YouTube channel. Is that correct, Michael?
yeah, that's correct.
Awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, we can see the chat messages from all of those, and we can try and respond to them as we go, or see if there's something a little later on. But I wanted to give also a little bit of context that today's topic is stress management. But like I said, this is the fourth one. The first one that we talked about was staying active at your desk job, and fitness snacks came into play there. Back health was the second episode, then eye health last week, and now we're on to stress management. I think fitness snacks have come up in all of them, haven't they?
Yeah.
That seems like a useful topic, but
Yeah, and
um,
I think we might as well bring it up here too.
well, I think I did. So, I mean, I think that it's a useful thing to think about. Is that we want to be able to do things that contribute to us staying active and being well, healthy. That are not just these big, huge things, but the snacks sort of a concept, I think, is a really applicable one to so many different circumstances. So, oh, I mean, we haven't talked about this, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But do you have some thoughts about how fitness snacks tie into the stress management thing, or should we save that for later?
Yeah, no, I mean we can get into that a little bit. So yeah, fitness snacks for those who don't know, or it's just stepping away from whatever you're doing, taking a break from your work, especially if you're sedentary, sitting down at a computer, stepping away and doing some sort of activity. It can be high intense activity or just mobility, whatever. Just getting active for a few minutes and then going back to your work. So I think it's a good. Not only is it good for you physically, gets the blood flowing, but it also gets to your blood flowing to your brain, and it's also good for mental health as well. I would say because you're getting that physical break, but you're also getting a mental break, as well. So stepping away from your desk and doing these fitness snacks throughout the day. For me, I do them for the mental health benefits, mostly, because I find that when I come back to my desk, I'm more energized. I feel more productive. I'm more creative. I can solve problems more easily. Um, there's a lot of new research coming out that shows that these fitness snacks are really good for you, because studies have also found that a lot of people they work and then they go to the gym, so they're working out for like an hour, but there's still those other 23 hours in the day. So if you're just working out for an hour, you're not. I don't know. It's still important to be active as you can throughout the day. So whether or not that's doing fitness snacks, going for a walk, just getting up and taking that break from your work, and it helps mentally and physically.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, honestly. To make sure that you're doing something other than what you're so focused on can help you in terms of your physical health. But I definitely see the potential value there as well from a stress management perspective. Giving
Yeah.
yourself sort of the freedom to take a little bit of time away from the high intensity thing, and then maybe it's a physically intensive thing, but it's not working your brain in the same way. I
Mhm.
think that seems like it has so much potential value.
Yeah, right. And I think especially for people in tech or people who are using technology, which is a lot of us, it just helps to step away from sometimes. And a lot of people think they don't have time to work out, or that's one of the bigger excuses. And I think with these fitness snacks, you don't really have that excuse anymore to just take 90 seconds, 2 minutes, and then come back. And even then, like, even though you're stepping away for 2 minutes, you're kind of gaining productivity because of what you're doing for yourself. So you might be able to get your work done faster or more efficiently or better or whatever. Um, but yeah, I think that is good for mental health and stress management. And like Dylan said here, going on a walk every day, going on a 1 to 2 mile walk every 2 hours. Yeah, I mean that's awesome. I think walking, especially obviously walking outside, going outside is so stress relieving. The nature, the greenery, or the whatever you're around, stepping away from the artificial screens and going outside for a walk has tons of benefits. Walking is beneficial, like cardiovascularly. It reduces blood pressure. It does reduce. It has been shown to reduce stress and anxiety. Walking is one of those underrated things that most of us can get a lot more of.
Yeah, personally, I try to get out for a walk as well whenever I can. Some days I'm better at it than others. Try to get longer walks if I can, but I don't always manage to. I think that the point here is a really interesting one, that it all really scales, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a 1 hour walk for it to be a valuable thing. And in fact, sometimes that might be a blocker, like the mental blocker of like, oh, I can't walk for a full hour, so I'm not going to do anything. But a smaller amount, whether it's a mile or two, or whether it's just once around the block, even just to have a little tiny bit of something separate, that seems like it could be a really valuable way of getting outside of the stress circumstance to sort of help reset your brain a bit.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a great point. And that mindset shift of taking just smaller steps to add together, and then in doing that, you're kind of crossing off to do list items, and I think that's another good thing to do for stress management. When you're able to cross off like easy to do items, it's kind of like an internal win. So, and that can be in going in little walks. You're checking off that walk. You've done something good for yourself. Check it off. It's a win. And I think that in itself reduces stress. Um, I think that,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think
it
that
really
just that
does. Yeah.
yeah, that mind shift is super important. And I think that, yeah, I love that point, Matthias.
Oh, thanks. One of the things you just mentioned there about crossing things off your to-do list. So there are two parts to that. The first is putting things like this on your to-do list, right? Like having it actually matters to my life to go out and have a walk, go for a walk, be active, and do those sorts of things. So I think that's a really valuable thing to do. I would also add that one of the other things to consider is that, let's say that you have a goal of walking for, let's say, an hour a day, and you put that on your to-do list, and then you don't manage to walk that hour that day, and then you miss the next day, and then now you're like, oh, if I'm going to catch up, I have to walk for 3 hours today, and you sort of keep going, and you carry this sort of to-do list debt, in a sense of like all of
Yeah.
the over like too big goals that you set for yourself. I personally think that one of the it ties into stress management, ties into the to do list, is not necessarily being so hard on ourselves about some of those things. We're real people. Can't always do everything that we want to be able to accomplish, and forgiving ourselves for not accomplishing our lofty goals is fine, right? So if you do have a goal to go out for a walk, I would recommend make it a smaller goal, and then maybe keep walking because you feel like you're on a roll, and do it that way. And then if you don't manage to do it, don't feel like you have this debt that you have to pay off of, like, oh, I missed these things, because I think that that's actually just going to add to your stress, add more blockers, and then prevent you from doing the thing that is valuable on an ongoing basis. So I applied that to a lot of other circumstances as well, learning goals, and I think it really does apply to this as well. Do you think that's a fair and good
Oh,
approach, or do you have some other suggestions there?
yeah, no, definitely. That's a great idea and a great approach. And that, like breaking it down into smaller pieces or setting yourself like reasonable goals. And then, like you said, forgiving yourselves if you don't meet those goals. That's really huge. Because a lot of people end up, just quitting or giving it all up if they, like you said, if that debt piles up, they're just like, forget it. I can't do this. So that's a great point. I like that.
Yeah, I can definitely feel overwhelmed by my own sort of expectations of myself. So I think that that's one of the things I need to try to stay mindful about. All right, I
Great.
mentioned at the start that we are happy to take questions as we go, and I wanted to get to one other question. Someone was asking here. Can they watch the recording after the fact? And the answer is yes. You should be able to go back to the previous episodes and watch those. And you should be able to have this same link, I think, to be able to watch it in the future. So that is a great thing that you can do. I don't know if we have links to those things, or if you maybe just need to search for the historical videos attached to the account that you're watching on. That's probably the easiest way to do it. But
Yeah.
thanks for asking. And if there are any other questions as we go through this, by all means, jump in with those as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Now, Michael, I wanted to ask you about one other thing that you mentioned to me earlier. You were talking about doing things you enjoy. So that's I think a really useful thing to think about stress. But now we're talking about adding something. And do you want to talk through that a little bit? Like, how does that all work? So adding something that you enjoy can potentially remove stress.
Yeah, sure. So this is another one of those subjects that, um, if it's on your list of things to do, you don't want it to take up like a lot of time, but it is good to have something like this on your list, something that you can look forward to, um, because just knowing that you're going to be doing something you enjoy that day, that takes stress off you as well. So, for example, like if you're into doing art, art can be a very relaxing thing for a lot of people, just to calm you down. So, I mean, it can be something that you enjoy or something that relaxes you, like art, for example. For me, I like to work out or whatever. That's like a great stress reliever for me. So whether or not it's, something that's more active, or something, going to a movie, just whatever, drawing, writing, if you just making sure you give yourself some time, because we pour our hearts into our companies, that we work for, and but make sure to make time for yourself. So whatever that might be, just art was an example that came to my mind because, um, drawing and that kind of stuff seems to be super relaxing for some people. Matthias, what's something you, do that's like that?
Yeah, actually, so art is a really interesting topic. But to answer your question specifically of something I do, I like to do puzzles. So out on our coffee table, we generally try to have a puzzle on the go. And so the whole family just sort of walks by and takes a few minutes to place a piece, or something, or look for something, or organize just some little tiny bit of progress that sort of helps the whole thing come together in time. I find that personally really relaxing and enjoyable. And I guess you could argue that it's like creating a bit of sort of pre-structured art. There's something nice
Yeah.
to look at, and it sort of works your brain in a different way. When you
Yeah, right.
mentioned art, I thought about the different kinds of things that would fit into art, and I imagine like. I mean, obviously, there's drawing and painting of like creating some physical art, but singing or something is like an art form, right? You could make
Yeah.
something up or sing a song that you enjoy,
Yeah.
or actually, one of the things that popped in my mind now just is, let's say that you become a Chat GPT poet. So you're creating prompts to come up with all sorts of interesting poetry that you're creating through your prompting, and it's like you're doing something fun. You show the people around you, hey, look at this silly poem that I slash Chat GPT wrote, or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
no, that's cool. I think, yeah, art can obviously be many things, and I think one of the keys is using, like, a different part of your brain, compared to, what you do at your own work. So if I'm making, slides or whatever for my lesson, what I find to be relaxing doesn't really, use that part of my brain, and for me, it's working out so that my brain isn't involved well, it is involved just in a completely different way. So I think, varying it up can reduce stress overall as well.
I think that's one of the themes is that whether it's physical activity or whether it's applying yourself in a creative, different way, or whether it's maybe just taking some time away to relax. One of the things you mentioned of like you need to have time for yourself. It made me think about how our bodies force us to sleep if we don't give them sleep, often enough. It'll eventually say, "I give up." You're out, like, yeah.
Yeah,
but
right.
that is an important part of our own sort of being healthy, and I personally find that getting a good night's sleep can also be a stress relieving sort of a thing, giving myself the freedom to say, okay, I'm done with all that stuff of the day. I'm just gonna fall asleep now.
Yeah.
I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, in any one of these, conversations we've been having in any, episode here, 1 through 4, sleep is an answer to all of the problems. Um, Sleep is so important, especially for stress management. If I get a bad night of sleep, I'm stressed, my body craves, like, bad foods, I'm irritable, just all kinds of
Mhm.
things that add to my stress. So sleeping for me is one of those non-negotiables. I have to get like 7 hours minimum of sleep for me to feel good and to do my best work. Um,
Yeah. It's interesting you say you get irritable. I personally never get irritable. So, I mean, that's like, I guess that's just the difference between you and me, huh? Yeah. Sarcasm? Yeah. But hey, we've got some questions coming in on the chat of where can we watch the recordings? How can we get informed about the streams, and all of that? So, just to answer those sort of in bulk, I would say that whatever channel you're currently watching this stream on, subscribe to it and put like the bell for notifications so that you will get notified next time we go live. You can also watch our posts that generally come out in a bit in advance so that you can sort of schedule your participation. You can potentially put a thing on your calendar because we're doing these every week at the same time. So those are some of the things that you can do. But basically, the key thing is take a look at the channel that you're currently watching this on and subscribe to it. So yeah, like and subscribe. Don't forget, and blah, I
yeah,
guess all that stuff. But,
yeah,
all right. So just taking a look back at the stress management. One of the things that you talked about is um, reducing caffeine intake. I don't know about that. Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, and that's a good segue from sleep because a lot of people go from sleeping to caffeination. And so the reason it affects our stress levels, or that it might affect our stress levels, has to do with like cortisol production. So when you drink caffeine, you're raising your cortisol. That's a hormone in your body that is responsible for waking you up. It gets really high when you're in that fight or flight mode. So it gets your heart pumping faster, your respiratory rate faster. So I think if you're, spiking cortisol a bunch during the day, that is going to lead to higher stress. What I like to do is, so when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol levels naturally rise, and this is so that you wake up. Um, a lot of
Mm,
times, many people, including myself, I have caffeine right away in the morning, and that kind of blunts the cortisol effect, because it's kind of taking over in the natural place of my cortisol production. And so I like to, I kind of wait to have my coffee, or I try to wait like an hour to an hour and a half after I wake up to have my coffee, just to let my body do its thing before I introduce caffeine. Um,
mm.
and this it was hard to do at first because but I think it's something that it might be worth trying, because your body already produces that cortisol. Um, so I don't know, just something to think about. And if you're having caffeine too much, that caffeine is one of those things that is kind of easy to have too much of, and then you start feeling jittery, and it affects your sleep at night. And going back to sleep, if you have coffee, I like to stop having coffee, definitely by like 3 p.m. for me. Otherwise, I
Mm.
notice that it affects my sleep, which then affects my stress levels the next day. Decaf is also
Yeah, they
good.
all. Yeah, okay. So I gotta put the comment out.
Yeah,
Decaf is also good, or what I call brown sadness water.
that's funny.
Yeah, that. I so it might be sadness in the way in one way, but I think what we're learning here is that it all comes together to affect our bodies, right? Like the caffeine triggers the cortisol. The cortisol is affecting our brain. It's affecting our sleep. It's affecting then. It's sort of a rolling problem potentially. So maybe the sadness water can create some happiness through its effects.
Yeah,
Decaf is
yeah.
an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it is interesting. I haven't looked a ton, like, I don't know if it, because I do think coffee has some health benefits, and I think caffeine does in some cases. But with coffee, it has different like phytochemicals and antioxidants in it also. And I don't know what the decaffeinating process does to coffee. If it just takes out the caffeine, maybe it just takes out the caffeine, and in which case, like, that sounds pretty cool. It never
yeah.
tastes as good though. Why is that? It just doesn't have the same taste.
It's not quite the same. Yeah. So I think that there are different decaffeination processes, and I am by no means an expert on this, but I remember reading that one of the ways of doing it is like attaching a particular chemical that sort of binds to caffeine and then draining that out, sort of a thing. So I
Mm,
don't know if it maybe attaches to some other stuff as well, or but anyway, I think that there are some other processes as well that aren't quite the same,
mhm,
and I'm sure each of them has its own benefits and drawbacks. But it's an interesting thing to take a look into. So, I mean, I think the from the chat, I see people having different opinions on
yeah.
caffeine, decaf coffee, whether it's worth it or not. To be honest, I think that having just water, if you don't like the taste of decaf, drinking just water, it sounds like a pretty useful thing as well, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah, and
um,
I think drinking water instead of drinking coffee when you wake up, it might be, nice to try just drinking water. I try to drink a lot of water right when I wake up just because, I haven't been drinking water while I've been sleeping, so I'm relatively dehydrated, and water, we could all use, some more hydration. I think another stat that comes to my mind is like 90% of Americans are dehydrated, walking around dehydrated.
ouch.
And I
Oh,
think
yeah, yeah.
that's not good for your brain either. So,
No, 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 it's really not. I mean, again,
yeah,
this all ties into all these things. I mean, how our body is, like if we're dehydrated or if we're hungry or if we're like sleepy or whatever. We talked about the irritability earlier, right? About how that sort of comes into play. But then that will cause even more things, right? When I'm irritable, I'm not just irritable at others around me, I'm also irritable at myself potentially. And so have that then adds more stress, and it is much worse.
Yeah.
So being properly hydrated and fed actually is another. I mean, the reason we have the term hangry is because it's a real thing, right? Like your hunger creates an irritable, angry sort of uh, cloud around you. It's not
Yeah.
a good thing. So, yeah,
No.
sorry, you were gonna say.
No, yeah, no, it's definitely not, and it affects your focus and your mood and everything else. Um, what do you I just I see I'm seeing
Yeah.
Dylan's
Oh,
question here. What do you think on the notion that you're supposed to drink half your body weight in fluid ounces? Man,
like every day, half my body weight in. Oh wait, is this like a pounds to ounces conversion?
or a
Because if I drank
kilogram
half
to
my body weight, that's
so okay, so for Dylan, so you're saying you, um, according to what you said, you're supposed to be drinking, 200. Oh, half of your body, 125
so.
ounces of water, is that what you're saying? Isn't I think 128 is a gallon, right? Um, I don't know. 8 glasses of
I don't
water,
know.
it's
I
like
use metric.
64 ounces. I'm not sure.
I'm in
Um
Canada. I even have some swag to show for it. So.
Yeah, but, I think it is important to be hydrated. I try to drink, like, a liter of water when I in throughout the morning, sometimes I don't do that, but I do feel better when I'm hydrated. I feel like my skin is clear when I'm hydrated. um, I don't get headaches. If I'm super dehydrated, I'll get headaches. I don't perform as well, like, physical activity or mentally, but I think, um I've heard the drink 8 glasses of water a day thing,
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that. Yeah, go ahead.
and I don't know, it's obviously different. Everyone requires different amounts, obviously,
I
depending on,
think that's
like,
the key, right?
yeah, I think that's the key. But I think, yeah, okay, so Angela, you have 60 ounces, or you try to get 60 ounces of water a day. I think our bodies can, when you're thirsty, your body usually gives you signs that you're thirsty. But on the other hand, I've also heard, like, if you're thirsty, you're already like 1% dehydrated. But I think,
Hmm. Hmm.
so I don't know, just being like intentional about sipping on water throughout the day. I mean, I don't think you necessarily, for you, Dylan, I don't know if you need 125 ounces of water. That does seem like a lot of water. But I don't know, maybe you do. It's not something, I don't know. Ask your doctor. I think that's
Yeah,
maybe
I
the best
think
thing to do.
Uh, honestly, I think that is really good advice. For these specifics, I think that a medical professional who actually knows these things would be well. I mean, I think they might be more qualified than we would to answer about your health, right? But the point I think that I want to make here is that having a goal to drink water is a really good one. I think that you shouldn't beat yourself over the head with whatever amount you sort of set for yourself as like a this is my goal and I didn't manage it. I mean, you could do the same sort of thing with water as you do for like I want an hour walk every day, and then you're constantly feeling like you're failing because you're not hitting that goal that you set for yourself. I think
Yeah,
that's a negative thing and it's causing more stress. Personally, I find that. So I
yeah,
find that a better approach is to be mindful of how it's important to drink water and keep drinking water and make sure that I'm not dehydrated by my body's signals of how I'm feeling and whatnot. But in the end, the only thing that we really can do is to do as well as we can and then keep trying to do better, like, and
yeah,
without a stressful sort of a feeling about it, but just like hey, this is me. I'm doing this stuff. I'm trying my best. I'm gonna keep trying to do better. So I think having a bottle like you mentioned that says how much you should drink by a certain time, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Unless you then create like a feeling of guilt and stress and sort of overwhelm yourself, that's my personal thing. But again, talk to your doctor. Anything you
yeah.
wanted to add to that,
No, that's
Michael?
that's that's great advice, and I think, if you are thirsty or you are getting headaches or something, try drinking more water. That's, that's kind of my thoughts on it, but, yeah.
Definitely a useful tip. Yeah. Cool. All right. So, in terms of stress, there are some other techniques that we might be able to use You've mentioned that breath work is one of the things
Yeah.
that you can use, and you also mentioned meditation. Do those get tied together, or are
It's
those two separate things?
Yeah, it seems like like oftentimes they are tied together, but they
Okay.
are 2 separate things, but often when you are meditating, you are focusing on your breathing, so it's kinda you're kind of doing that there as well. But this is kind of the I like to talk about this stuff because there's a little bit more, scientific evidence, around it, and it's not things people think to do when they're stressed out. I think it's good tips that you can easily implement into your day to reduce your stress levels. So for breath work in particular, there's two kinds of breathing that I've studied a little bit on and are shown to have some evidence behind them, and that is resonance breathing and the physiological sigh. So resonance breathing,
Resonance breathing and physiological sigh. All right.
yes.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
curious.
no. And so resonance breathing is when you it's basically really slow breathing, slow and controlled breathing. And the breath rate you're taking is anywhere from 4.5 to 7 breaths per minute. So really slow breathing, basically.
Hmm.
Slow, intentional, controlled breathing. And when you do this,
So,
studies
like
have shown
15-second breaths, sort of a breath cycle. If you're
or
looking at
yeah, like
four per minute,
seven
right?
7 seconds in,
Or
7 seconds out. Right, right.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Something like that.
Hmm.
And so studies have shown that kind of breathing to reduce stress levels, lower blood pressure, enhance your mood, and increase HRV. HRV is heart rate variability. So your heart rate variability is a measure of in between the variability of the seconds. It's measured in milliseconds between your heartbeat. So the higher your heart rate variability, the better you are at combating stress. The more resilient you are to stress. That's kind of one of the things it measures. So the higher your HRV, the basically the lower your stress, or the better you are able to deal with stress. And resonance breathing has been shown to increase that. So that's kind of an interesting thing you can try. And obviously, just start like a couple of minutes here and there, um, and maybe do it for like 5 minutes a day or something like that. If you kind of want to implement it into your day, it's something to try. Something even easier is the to try is the physiological sigh. So I think we could even practice this one on here if you wanted to. So the
Sure.
physiological sigh has been shown to reduce your stress, even compared to some forms of better than some forms of meditation. So the physiological sigh, we sometimes do it naturally. It just, when we sigh, and it's kind of subconsciously we're kind of trying to lower our stress. Maybe we don't know it, but that's one of the reasons we do it. So the physiological sigh, you take a breath in for about 1 second. So you breathe in,
Okay.
and then you do another quick breath to top it up to top off your air in your lungs,
Okay.
and then you breathe
Everyone, do
out.
this with us now. Okay.
Well, yeah, hold on, and then you let it out for 2 seconds. So,
Jumping the
okay,
gun.
so
Sorry,
why don't
sorry.
we
Okay,
try it
okay,
all
okay. Yeah.
together? On
Get all the
3, okay.
instructions before I jump in. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna say go,
Okay.
we're gonna breathe in for 1 second, then we're gonna top it off,
Okay.
and then we're gonna let it out. Okay, so ready?
Okay.
Is everyone ready? Okay, ready, here we go. Ready? So breathe in, top it off, and slowly let it out. I don't know. Even for me, just doing one of those, I feel a little bit better. So the
I
studies
like
have
it.
shown just doing this for a few minutes can lower your stress. And so what I like to do is if I'm working and sometimes I step away from my desk or just close my eyes and do a few rounds of physiological sighing, and that kind of it brings down my heart rate. I feel better. I feel less stressed out. Um, and luckily there's some evidence to back up those feelings. So I think that's something that might be interesting to for you to try.
I love it.
Try it, see how it is.
Yeah, so
And
this is really good. Okay, so I tried some of that resonance breathing for a minute before we did the physiological side, but now I've got like some terms here. So
yeah,
HRV for heart rate variability, resonance breathing, physiological sigh.
Yeah.
These are all really valuable things, and there's actual science
Yeah.
that this isn't just sort of made up hand wavy.
Right.
I mean, I'm literally hand waving my hands, but it's not like that's not how we came up with these techniques.
Yeah.
So that
Right.
that's kind of important, right? Is that we're
Mhm.
doing stuff that that we can know is actually supporting our wellness, our stress
Yeah.
management, our ability to deal with this. I'm going to try doing those a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah,
Very
yeah, I think,
interesting.
yeah, if you don't wanna get up and do a fitness snack, or instead of doing a fitness snack or whatever, I think maybe trying it for, a few minutes, it's not gonna. And then with all of these methods, obviously consult with your doctor just before you do them, just, so they can give you the okay. Um, but it's really cool that the science is starting to catch up with some of this stuff, and like some of the breathing techniques and meditation techniques. Um, and uh, I'm looking at this EFT up here in the comments.
In the chat.
I've never heard of that, emotional freedom technique. Um, it sounds interesting. I haven't heard of it.
Yeah,
EFT.
I haven't heard of that either. That's I don't know if you have any more context for us, but um, that's uh, um, that's an interesting thing to potentially research. But
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
unfortunately, we don't have any expertise in that. So, but
Yeah,
thanks for
I
jumping in.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
That sounds it sounds cool. It sounds interesting. But with with the breathing techniques, it's pretty easy, in my opinion, to implement it into your day, just because it doesn't take much time to see benefits. Like I said, when I do the physiological side, just for a couple of minutes, I feel better. So that kind of leads me into meditation. This is a subject that I'm not super well researched in. It's something that I'm trying to do more of myself, because for me, growing up, I kind of always thought it was one of those hand waving things. But I've recently been trying it, and through some just like my own personal experience, I've benefited from it a little bit. So the example that I just listened to, like a little audio thing on my phone, like a 5-minute meditation, and I've done this a few times, and see, I've have this Aura Ring. It measures different metrics, like your heart rate variability, your sleep, and different things like that. And I've noticed that when I do this, this 5-minute meditation, and that does, it includes different kinds of breathing, thinking about, being on the beach, that kind of stuff, and just like letting go of your worries. See,
Mm,
I don't know meditation very well, so I'm probably not explaining it very good, but that's kind of the gist of the meditation I've been doing. And I noticed, in 5 minutes, my HRV went up, 10 milliseconds just in that short amount of time. It just crept up like that. So that I thought that was really cool and interesting that I could see
mm,
like a measurable result from doing that. And along with that, my heart rate itself went down a little bit. Um,
mm.
so I don't know. I think it's something
So
cool and
you
something that
said that
I'd
the
like to.
HRV went up, and so
Yeah.
the variability went up, and that's what you
Yes.
want.
Yeah,
You
and
want.
that's yeah,
Go ahead.
a higher HRV is better. That
Oh,
it helps you become less stressed, more resilient to stress.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Very
yeah, just
interesting.
another
Okay.
interesting thing, that I personally experienced. So I don't know, Matthias, have you ever done, any sort of meditation?
Not really. It's not really my my thing, but I
Yeah,
imagine that it's like trying to switch your mind's focus away from all of the things. And I
yeah,
think this is sort of a theme, right? Like the
mhm,
managing stress involves difference. The it seems like the repetition and the intensity of focus is what sort of gets us more stressed. And so, whether it's physically going somewhere else, whether it's then changing our mind to do something else, it feels like that's sort of a similar thing to like
yeah.
doing art or that sort of
Yeah,
a thing.
that's a really great point. I didn't, really make that connection in my head, but it all kind of has the same, like, changing your mindset, switching off part of your brain and switching on another part.
Yeah.
Micah here mentioned, I love the free Insight Timer app. Okay, so that has
Hmm.
some meditations on there. Yeah, I mean, something to try out, and, uh, that
All right.
sounds like a good thing to try out, Micah. Does it work for you, Micah? I don't know if you're still there, but, I assume it works for you. Um, so that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
so
sounds like an
meditation, something to
interesting.
try.
Okay, so I'm sort of getting a little bit of a theme here is that things like a timer app or a technique of like remembering to do different breathing or having maybe a water bottle that gives you like an indication. We're talking a lot about trying to structure our lives so that the things that we need to do happen, right? So we know at the outset that these are things that are important. So we try to do things in our lives to make that more possible, make us more successful at that. So putting the things for our wellness on our to do list is one of the ways that it'll then, oh, we look at our to do list and, oh, that's right, I should remember to do that thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that seem like a reasonable theme
Yeah,
here? Is
I
that we
think
try and
so. Yeah, and then putting things on your to-do list that are for yourself. We traditionally look at
yeah.
a to-do list as all these, like, things we're not gonna look forward to or whatever. You have to fix something in your house or do some project or whatever. But doing these smaller, I think one of the things is making it small, and doable,
Mm,
actually. So by putting a 5-minute meditation or breath work session or whatever on your to-do list,
mhm.
you're gonna be a lot more likely to do that, and checking it off just feels good.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So, some of the options that we have, you mentioned like going for a walk, doing something like art, something different, breath work and meditation. You've also mentioned when we were organizing this earlier, stretching. So it feels like that's one of the other sorts of things that you could potentially work into what you're doing. Do you want to talk a little bit about the stretching thing?
Yeah, sure. So for stretching, the study is kind of old, but I found this 2013 study that found that 10 minutes of stretching can reduce anxiety. Um,
Mm,
and so I think it probably just has to. It's another one of those things. You're switching your mindset, you're turning off one part of your brain and turning on another part. And not only, I think stretching, there's a little more to stretching as well. But I think that's kind of the maybe helps with the stress management part. I think stretching, especially before you go to sleep, for me, like stretching is just relaxing. It's not, and it's different from like a workout. Like I'm not like really pushing myself super hard. I'm just kind of relaxing and going into these stretches, so that helps me physically. It helps me recover. It helps me feel better. Like for me, I've always had super tight hamstrings. So as I've stretched my
mm.
hamstrings and hip flexors more, my back has felt better as a result of that. Um, and so I think stretching can help in a lot of ways, but that's just another thing um, you might want to try. And so
Yeah.
I
So
think,
you mentioned ham. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah,
Keep
no, and
going.
I was just gonna say, with all of these things, like I don't want it to over like, one of the things is, we don't want it to overwhelm you. Just
Yeah.
pick like 1 or 2 of these things to try. Um, and another note, if you know you're not gonna continue to do these things down the road, like I would be less likely to try them. Like, because, I mean, yeah, I think just having doing something you can sustainably do is important as well. So if you don't want to do like painting or something, like maybe try breath work instead, or
You're like, I really hate painting, but I'm gonna buy $100 worth of painting supplies and leave them in the garage or
yeah,
in the closet or whatever. That's not really successful. Yeah. Um,
exactly.
there were some comments about different ways of tracking things. So the like a calendar item versus a to-do list in like an app or something versus like a written piece of paper. I think that would be an interesting thing to look into. I'm
Mhm.
not sure what any of the studies might show on that, but my feeling would be that it's also going to vary person to person. Is
Yeah,
my guess is that some people
yeah,
are going to find that certain things work better for them and not
mhm,
others. And so I think that's one of the things that can reduce a bit of stress is not assuming that what worked for other people is going to work for us.
yeah,
Because if somebody else has a lot of success with it. It's a useful thing for us to consider, but not necessarily for us to then put more stress on ourselves that we need to do the same thing. What's wrong with us that it's not working for us? And then that's a
Yeah.
negative spiral, right? So,
Yeah, exactly,
um,
exactly, and I think, that kinda ties in to what I'm thinking a lot of next, week is gonna be like, because next week's topic is on nutrition, um, for doing well at your job, and I think,
right, right.
there are so many opinions surrounding nutrition and which diet is the best and what is good and bad for you, but the thing is, I think different people like to do different things, and different things work differently for different people. So I'll
Hmm.
bring it back here though. So for today's for stress management, what works
Yeah.
for you might not work so well for someone else. So these are all just things to, yeah, like everything, this is just something to consider. You don't have to try it if you don't want to. But yeah, for me, for planning and calendars, for me personally, I find that I'm more likely to do something if I write it down with a and pencil on paper. I don't know, just
Mm,
the act of
a
journaling or
physical
writing,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, physical thing is different for me than like typing it. I don't know. That's just me personally.
Yeah, so the comment back was that yes, all of these different techniques can work, right? So I think that's a really valuable perspective to have, is that finding what works for you is an important thing. And actually, I think this kind of segues a little bit to the next point that you had, which is saying no, right? So I think that you were probably thinking about it in a different sort of a context, but I think it's an interesting one because saying no to some of these techniques that you know aren't going to work for you, like for example, oil-based painting is not going to work for me because I'm going to get nasty headaches from that, right? So I'm going to say
Yeah,
nope, thank you. I'll stick to puzzles instead.
yeah,
But I think we can apply this to a lot of different things. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you were thinking about when you were saying when you wrote
yes,
saying no, not
right.
just about like no to different techniques?
Mhm. So what I was thinking, about saying no is saying no to people who want you to do things that aren't necessarily going to benefit everyone. And I think this is something that I struggle with, personally. Sometimes I say yes to just too many things, and then I'm way stressed out. So I think, it's okay to say no. And this is kind of a brief point, from my in my perspective. But I think saying no is something you might want to consider doing more of, because when you're saying yes to everything, you're usually not giving yourself that time that you need to go do something relaxing like that oil based painting for some people.
Yeah. Right, and that's great that people can get so much value out of that. The saying no, it really does tie back into all this because whenever you say yes to anything, you're saying no to whatever's on the margin, right? Whatever you would have been able to say yes to because you had the time for, now you can't. And if that thing that you can no longer say yes to is something that you need to relax or you need to be able to sleep or maybe you need to eat or whatever things, or maybe you need to have those few minutes to do resonance breathing
Yeah,
and is that yeah and physiological sigh. I'm trying to keep these things in
yeah.
my memory so
Well,
that I
that's
can
good.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah yeah. So if you're or stretching or going for a walk or whatever these things are, if you don't have enough margin to say yes to those things, then saying yes to something else means you're saying no to them, right? Like, so
yeah,
they're all tied together. And it's not
yeah,
even just those things. Like you were getting at, saying yes to one thing can mean that you're then more stressed out because you have too many things on your plate.
yeah,
And um, yeah, it's just it feels overwhelming, right?
yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
It sorry, go ahead.
All right, Micah brings up another good point. Us Midwesterners need to learn how to say no, even if it seems rude. Otherwise, we have our trademark passive aggressiveness coming out. Okay, so this is, I don't know. This might make. I'm from Minnesota. Still don't know if I can say this, but I feel like, people, yeah, Minnesota nice, and there's Minnesota passive aggressive too. That's funny, Micah. And I do think, yeah, part of the Minnesota nice thing. Micah is from Minnesota. I know Micah. Um, for yeah, it's okay to say no, and we just got to get over it. Sometimes you have to, yeah, and like Angela says, it's sometimes you have to create those boundaries, and set like a
Yeah.
precedence for those boundaries, because if you say yes to everything, you're just going to have you feel like you need to say yes to it all because you've started saying yes. um
That's an interesting point too. Yeah, being able to say no to some things can then give you sort of the practice, and the mindset that it's okay to say no to maybe some other things. It is hard to say no
yeah.
when you know that the thing that's being asked is like helping someone or
Mhm,
whatever, right?
mhm.
But
Yeah,
it reminds me a little bit of the whole like, if there's an emergency in the air, in the on flight or whatever, take care of your own mask before you put the masks on your kids or whatever, because you have to be in a position of being healthy and able. You have to continue to be able to then help other people. So
yeah,
saying no to helping someone today might mean that you can say yes to helping 10 people in the future.
yeah,
And that's an important thing to keep in mind. It's not always an immediate emergency, urgent, we have to say yes now. I mean, some things really are urgent and emergency, and they're worth being stressed out about because there's such an important effect from that. So
yeah,
I don't think that if ever you feel stressed out, it's like, oh, I'm not going to rescue this person who's drowning because I feel too stressed. Like that. That's not kind of the thing we're
yeah,
talking about, right?
right,
Say yes to that, even if you're going to be late to your meeting.
yep,
But the point is that there's so much more in how we approach all of our interactions.
yeah.
It is, yeah, it's a really good point. Boundaries are so important. Um,
Yeah, no, yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the whole airplane mask thing. So at first it can seem confusing to some people, like why I I love my children, I wanna put on their mask first, but the
mm,
reality is, like, you might not be able to put on your own mask if you put on theirs first.
yeah,
So taking care of yourself has to be first, like Angela just said, because then if you take care of yourself, you can better help other people. So I
yes,
think
yeah,
that's really really important. So I mean, it doesn't even you don't even have to think of it as a selfish thing, because you'll be able to help more
it's not
people and
selfish.
better. It's not selfish.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yes, it's not
Yeah.
selfish to be in a position where you can help other people and you can continue to be a healthy individual, right? It's such an important thing. Just about that face mask thing, like if you do need oxygen in the plane, I was surprised to hear it's seconds. Like it's so fast that that you can wind up losing consciousness if you're not acting on that important information of you need
Mm.
to take care of yourself first. So while it seems like you said that it's really important, you got to take care of your kids, and yes, you do have to take care of your kids. They're not going to be able to know or be able to do that themselves. Just like in so many other relationships, we're not able, like they're maybe not able to do what they're asking of us. But if we don't take care of ourselves first, then we can be incapacitated and unable to do it. So I think this ties into one of the last points that you had, and we're right up on time as well. But is negative relationships. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how it's similar to and different from the saying no sort of a
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, so I think it really ties into saying no, because a lot of times negative relation like if you have a negative relationship with someone, someone that drains you, doesn't support you, is negative towards you, I think you it's important to consider that relationship and what it's doing for your health, and your stress, because a lot of times these negative relationships, yeah, I mean, they just drain you. I mean, I've
Mm,
had negative relationships like that before, time consuming, and the negativity and the stress it puts on you might not be worth it.
mm,
And I think, valuing, people who do care about you and are willing to put in time with you to make you a better person, or whatever, I think it's important to consider those relationships, and I think for me it like really ties into saying no, and doing what's good for you so that you can do good for other people. Um, I don't know, Matthias, do you have any opinions on that?
Oh, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess I always try to tie things into the same theme. I think that making sure that you have positive relationships is a part of helping you be more successful in all of your interactions, right? So if you are in whatever sort of a relationship, whether it's a work relationship or a friend relationship or whatever, those relationships, if they're dragging you down, you need to do something about them. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to change everything, cut it off completely, but you can potentially create a bit more distance, maybe say no to some of the interactions and reduce it, and try to get a little bit more margin
Mhm.
in your own situation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it comes back to the whole choosing what we're going to do to try to support ourselves to be successful in this endeavor. That it's not wrong to take care of ourselves. In fact, it is critically important to prioritize taking care of ourselves. So yeah, I love the comments that have been happening in the chat. Self care is so important. What happens when you say yes to less stress? I guess arguably, then you're going to have more margin, more ability to say yes to other positive things. So really
Yeah.
great stuff. Are there any other things that we should talk through here? I know we're right about at time. We started just a couple minutes late, but is there anything else that jumps out to you that we want to circle back on? Or
Um, uh, not really. I think, just
okay,
yeah, the all the tying in, I feel like everything kind of tied into to this mindset or switching off one part of your brain and turning on another part, and,
hmm,
and then we kinda got into saying no, and like I one more thing about the negative
oh,
relationships. Like you said, sometimes
okay, yeah,
saying no doesn't mean just like completely getting rid of someone in your life. Maybe it just means
yeah,
saying no to their behavior that's negatively affecting you.
yeah,
Because
good
maybe
framing.
because with maybe they just don't know. Maybe they don't know they're hurting you or whatever. So telling them, it's kind of one of those Midwesterner things. Maybe you speak up, speak up.
Yeah, I think all of us, whether we're Midwesterners or not, I'm not, but I mean, I think we can all see different parts of this in our own lives and situations.
Yeah,
So it's totally applicable and valuable. Yeah, we need to let people around us know how they can support us. Is I think one of the things that you're getting at in some of those negative relationships. It's actually not that the person is actively harmful or trying to be malicious or anything. In some cases, it's just that they don't even realize that they're having a negative impact. And
yeah,
having creating a positive relationship out of a negative relationship is a great result, right? But don't always happen accidentally. Sometimes we have to be intentional about making those happen. So trying to put ourselves in a position where we can succeed with relationships, with our physical health, with our mind sort of health of like paying attention to different things, fitness snacks, stretches. I'm just trying to list through some of the things that I'm remembering so that I remember them. The
yeah.
resonance breathing and the physiological size,
Yep.
all really great things. Yeah, wow. There's definitely been a lot of good stuff to
Yeah,
chat
yeah, and
through here.
then just letting people know when you are stressed, and that kind of time. If if sometimes if you don't
Yeah,
let people know, they might not be able to tell. So just sharing that, so you
yeah,
can
that's a
find a way
really
to
good
manage.
point.
Yeah,
And speaking the words rather than just having people realize it because you're irritable is more positive, right? Like it's, I'm really sorry I'm irritable right now. I'm trying not to be. That even by itself can sort of create the opportunity for people to help out, or
yeah,
maybe even asking specifically, like, would you mind doing this thing? I would really appreciate. Could you take this thing on instead of me today? Or would it be all right if I do that tomorrow instead? Or
yeah,
I'm not sure I can. Having conversations like that people around us are generally trying to be supportive and kind, right? Like,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
not trying to, especially if we have a relationship with them, they're generally interested in our interest as well, right? Like they're not just self-interested. So,
yeah, I
um,
think yeah,
yeah,
that's another great
that'd be
point that
great.
we could
Good tip.
probably get into, but I mean, I feel like in general, people are supportive and they want you
Mm.
to succeed and they wanna help. It reminds me of, people going to the gym for the first time. Everyone who goes to the
Ah,
gym is, like, super intimidated, but, like, they don't need to
mm,
be because literally most of the people there are happy to see you there, and if you asked them, they would probably help you because they've seen what it has done for their health, and so they wanna help you
yeah,
experience that too. So, yeah, I just think people are generally kind and supportive, and that's a good mindset to have also because that makes you feel
it
better and less
is.
stressed out.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I know we're over here, but I think that having the mindset of helping other people can, for me, be a bit of a stress relieving thing too, right? Like, I
Yeah,
feel good about being able to help other people. So, I really love that we could have this chat here today because I think that we've helped a number of people have different ideas that they can take away and apply to their own situations. And um, yeah, and I appreciate all the participation because it wasn't just the chat between you and me, Michael. It was the chat with all of us who have jumped onto this stream. So thank you all.
yeah.
Really appreciate everyone jumping on.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you, and I have
I
some things to look up too now,
Oh, good.
some
Yeah,
emotional
yeah,
freedom techniques and yeah, so thank
yeah.
you for the comments, everybody.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a really great stream. I really appreciate you taking the time with us and sharing all of your insights, Michael. This is a lot of really valuable stuff. And next week is the nutrition for brain health and energy. So I don't know if you have well, I mean, I think that's a teaser enough by itself.
Yeah.
So I think that's a useful thing to tune in for as well. So come back next week. But
Cool.
until then, I hope everyone has a really great rest of their day and a really great rest of their week. I got a frog in my throat. I need to drink some more water, I think. But yeah, thanks again. And
Thank you.
take care, all. All
Yep,
right.
take care. See ya.